mean that they definitely went that route. So if they were going to invest $10,000 in the in-person event, we gave them the flexibility to say you can roll all that $10,000 into the virtual event, but there's also packages at different price levels. So if they, could only invest $5,000, we also had a package for that. But what we wanted to do is make it as easy as possible for them. So if they had that $10,000 already earmarked for the in-person event, if we could give them a package that was very compelling at that price point, it was easy to just convert those funds over. We did create additional package levels, again, for that flexibility. So if they still wanted to support HFMA and have a presence at the virtual event, but again, if budgets had changed, we did offer them those packages at different levels. And then I would say, if you can, be prepared to customize. We did that. We probably had about 6 packages for the annual conference, but then, after we started talking to exhibitors, they said, well, this package is great, but if you can swap this element out and add something else in, then it would really work for us, and we were able to do that. So here's a couple of examples of what we did with our packaging for annual conference. This is not all of them. I'm happy to share all of our sponsorship packages for both the annual conference as well as digital revenue cycle. If you guys are interested afterwards, just let me know. But for example, we had a package that was a 10x10 booth for the in-person conference. It also came with 3 of our executive connection meetings, which are preset 15-minute meetings that we put together before the conference, and they happen at the in-person event. And then it also came with conference badges. So again, for virtual, we wanted to keep something at that same price point. So at $8,900, we kept the 3 executive connection meetings. We added some conference badges for them. What we did is gave them a presence also outside of the conference. This is another thing to keep in mind, is all of the exposure they get don't have to be at the virtual conference. You can use other elements, use exposure on your website, use if you have webinars or other events, if you have e-newsletters, you can easily give them exposure that extends the life of their sponsorship beyond just the event. And that's what we decided to do. So we gave them 3 buyer's resource guide listings, and that's going to be up on the HFMA website all year. And that's our online directory that puts them in categories based on what products and services they offer. We gave them the conference attendee list, and then we gave them 4 banner ads in our HFMA daily e-newsletter. So again, beyond the conference, giving them some branding there. For one of our other packages, at the in-person event, we had a $45,000 package that included a 20x20 booth with the whole build out, all the furniture. They got 10 executive connection meetings with that package, and they got conference badges. So for the virtual, what we did is we incorporated some thought leadership. So they had the opportunity to actually present a sponsored session during the conference. They got the attendee list from that individual session. So that's where some lead generation came. They got those same 10 executive connection meetings, again, accomplishing that lead generation goal. They got some conference badges. They got about 15 BRG listings, that's the buyer's resource guide, and they got the conference attendee list. So again, lessons here are create the packages that are the same cost as the in-person event packages were, and then also get creative. It's not the same thing. We didn't do a virtual booth, but what we did is supplemented it with some other deliverables that would accomplish those same goals that they would have expected from the in-person event. And, we incorporated some elements that were not at the conference so that we could extend the life of that sponsorship. So our results, we had, and this was for the annual conference, we retained over $1 million in sponsorship revenue for our virtual event, which was huge. We didn't know what to expect going in, and we anticipated less than that. So we count that as a pretty big success. I'll be transparent. Every sponsor and exhibitor who was already committed for the in-person event did not choose to participate. And that's where that flexibility came in. If you offer people the opportunity to take a refund or to do other things, some of them are going to take you up on that. So we had about 40% of our exhibitors and sponsors who were planning to be a part of the in-person show were part of the virtual show. We did have some of those additional funds that were repurposed into other sponsorships outside of the event, and some did choose to roll over those funds to the 2021 event. We had really great results on our event evaluations, both on the format of the conference as well as the content that we delivered. Some of that was curated content, and some of that was sponsor generated content. So our education team worked really closely with the sponsors who did have sponsored sessions and made sure it was really educational. They weren't sales pitches. They were really taking trends that our business partners have heard about in the industry, and also some case studies, and then showcasing them that way. And I think at the end of the day, we did goodwill. We gave some goodwill to our exhibitors and sponsors, whether it was offering the refund or the flexibility to do what they needed to do with their sponsorship fees, or whether it was giving them a really great opportunity to still, have exposure during the virtual event and fill their pipeline, during a time when they couldn't travel and couldn't attend shows that they rely on.
We have a couple questions.
Sure.
On the executive connection, what was the item or thing that the provider was given to attend and participate in that executive connection experience?
Yeah, so we found providers who have participated in the program in the past really like it just because it's an efficient way to meet with business partners. However, we also offered a 1-year free membership for them to HFMA. So we did that with our revenue cycle conference. That's going to actually be a paid event, so you do have to register and pay a fee. So for that one, we're offering free registration for the event for them and 5 of their team members. So you can get creative on what you can offer.
And the other question was concerns about crossing the line of sponsorship to advertising, which our treasurer advises us we will have to file and pay taxes on that portion. And Rita and I talked about this briefly. I said, there might be some questions about advertising because it came up yesterday. And we actually did send a message to our director of accounting, and I have 3 very well written paragraphs from him that tells us how all of that works. And we will be sending that out after Fall President's meeting. So everybody will understand what the difference between sponsor value and where advertising might cross over. And I think that's it right now.
Great. So, I think the other thing that Tracy and I talked about before this session was, now that we're through the annual conference and we have our digital revenue cycle conference actually happening next week, she kind of asked me, where did the sponsors get the most value from the packages that we offered? And I'd say it's a couple of things. It's anywhere where you can create those connections, whether it's through a program like our Executive Connections, where you're matching the provider with business partners based on the needs of the provider and what the business partner can offer, things like that. I would say the speaking opportunities, and whether it's a session or whether it's presenting a short case study. With the Digital Revenue Cycle Conference, we're going to be doing some Q&A with the sponsors where they can share what they're seeing in the marketplace, what some of the biggest challenges of their clients are that they're helping them overcome, things like that. And then anywhere where you can bring the sponsors into the content in terms of facilitating breakout discussions. So we're doing a lot of that with the Digital Revenue Cycle Conference. So it doesn't have to be just branding, and it doesn't, I would say where they get more value is where you can connect them to the attendees. Like I said, through speaking, through breakout sessions, through preset meetings. That's, I would say, where they're getting the most value.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's what we've learned so far, and happy to take questions on that. But I also really wanted to cover what's next and what will 21 bring and how are we planning for 2021. So again, before we jump into it, Jenna, if you can throw up a couple of questions, because I'm also curious about how you guys are planning for 2021. First question, how is your chapter proceeding with 2021 event planning? Are you guys planning for all in-person meetings? Are you planning for some in-person, some virtual? Are you not planning any events in 2021? Don't know. And I think we're missing one of the responses. I think there was supposed to be one in there if you're planning for all virtual. So that's okay. We'll roll with it.
Well, you can't answer it. We're done with our program. It's virtual.
How about for 2021?
2021 is the planning, the 3-day plan. We're just implementing what we've planned. It's going to be held March 2021. It will be all virtual.
Okay, thank you.
So lots of people doing virtual. Some are planning for some in person and some virtual. And then one more question, Jenna. So is your chapter planning any hybrid events for 2021? And what I mean by hybrid is you will have programming for people who will travel in person, but you will also provide programming for people who are attending virtually. It's almost like creating 2 events. I know it's a lot of work, but you'll see in a second that is actually what my team is planning for. All right, about split. Interesting. All right, so for 2021, some things that we had to keep in mind when we're looking ahead is, I just alluded to this, we are planning for hybrid events. I think we are in the mindset that some people hopefully will be willing to travel in 2021, maybe even later in the year, but we do know that some people may not be comfortable with that. So we do want to create an experience for the people who maybe aren't willing to travel but still want to be involved. We're going to keep in mind social distancing, and I think even if social distancing relaxes a bit, there's going to be new expectations from attendees. It's that new normal. This is huge for us. We didn't have the luxury when we were planning annual conference and even digital revenue cycle conference to have a plan A and then a backup plan B and maybe even a plan C, but we do have that luxury now going into 21. So we are moving forward with multiple plans waiting in the wings depending on what's going to happen. And the other thing I'd stress is don't just make adjustments to your normal event. You may have to reinvent it. So I'll show you how we're handling that for planning for annual conference 2021 in Boston. So again, some people may not be willing to travel. So we are planning for less people to be face-to-face, and we're planning for that hybrid event. We need to factor social distancing. So we didn't just take the plan for annual conference in, the traditional exhibit hall and just widen the aisles. What we're doing is redesigning the whole conference footprint. And the other thing to keep in mind is attendees and sponsors still have the same goals in mind. They still want the same thing from a conference, whether it's in person or virtual. They want the attendance, they want the networking. Your exhibitors, want those leads and connections. So maintain the value of the conference, even if it looks different. So here is the sneak peek for what we're planning for annual conference 2021. Like I mentioned, we are rethinking everything. So if you think back to an annual conference, you typically have attendees going into education sessions in breakout rooms. They're, small rooms and we kind of pack them full. We can't do that with social distancing. If we were to use the same education rooms, we'd probably have to have about 25% capacity. And is that the best way for a speaker to present? You've got probably a bunch of attendees who are going to want to attend sessions, will be at capacity, won't be able to do that. So what we're looking at doing is utilizing the entire exhibit hall for all the activities of the conference. So we're going to have different tracks and there'll be different stages within the exhibit hall. So it's an open air concept. You can spread out, you can do mixed seating, you can have the social distancing because that space is huge. So concept would be to have the different tracks. So say you have 6 to 8 tracks all within the exhibit hall. Each different track has a stage, and then there's mixed seating, and then we're going to bring the exhibits into those different track areas. So it incorporates the sponsors into those different topic areas. So think if you're an attendee and you are very interested in analytics, you can go to that analytics stage area in the hall. That's where all the sessions on analytics will be. because there's different seating there, you can network with other people who are interested in the analytics topics, and you can interact with solution providers in their exhibits kind of around the perimeter that deal with analytics. So everything that you want around analytics is in that topic area. Say you want to move over to the revenue cycle track area and hear a few sessions on revenue cycle, and also interact with the exhibitors that are related to revenue cycle. Then you just move and go into that area. So we're going to deal with, the headphones so that everybody can hear each other, but it just gives us the opportunity to deliver the education and lay out the conference in a different way to adjust for that social distancing and what the, what the pandemic has delivered to us this year. The other thing is, if you guys have, on the business partner side, or if you've seen as an attendee, what we've been doing the last few years at Annual Conference, it's really providing our exhibitors and our sponsors with packages. So in the past, they used to have to buy space, and then they'd have to pay to ship everything, and then they would have to buy their sponsorship separately. And we're just going to continue on that trajectory and give them packages that make sense to up the ROI. So the packages will include not only that exhibit space in those content areas, but also the executive connection meetings. And we're going to give them different ways to interact with the virtual and the in-person audience through speaking opportunities, through things like Q&A, through showing case studies and things like that. So that's the high level concept. As I said in the beginning, we love to get feedback. So I would love to, in the chat, put a couple of links to some surveys, just a couple of questions that I could get feedback from you all while Tracy is queuing up some questions.
I'm going to ask Ramona to unmute herself and ask the question you asked in the chat, Ramona, because I'm just not following it. So would you mind?
Sure.
Thank
So
you.
my question was, with the $45,000 sponsorship that you had with the 10 executive connections, for smaller business partner outfits, that might be attractive if, I don't know if you guys have thought of it or even have done it already, where you can split that out, since our next annual conference is some ways out, and giving them an opportunity to split those payments up, almost like a pay plan, might be attractive to some of those other business partners, especially with budgets today. Not such
Yeah,
a big...
I think that's great. And we have worked with our finance team to offer flexibility on payments. So we've been doing a lot of that, the payment plan, some upfront, some along the way. That's a great suggestion.
Thank you, Ramona. Is there anyone else that has questions? If you would raise your hand or put it in the chat and we can ask the question for you.
And again, there's 2 links in the chat. For those of you from provider organizations, I have one link in there, and then I have a couple of different questions for those of you who are from a business partner organization. So again, if you would, just click on the appropriate link and help us with some feedback.
So we can actually offer these links at the end of the day too. So if you want to go back and do the surveys, they will be open throughout the day, and then we'll get that. Well, Rita can go into Mentimeter and get the results after you guys take the time to do that. So we really appreciate the feedback. I don't see any other questions coming in, and I don't see anybody. Unless I'm missing it. Jenna, is there anybody raising their hand? I have my chat open, so it's harder for me to close that. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions. So with that being said, if you come up with any questions throughout the day, please don't hesitate to send those over to chapter@hfma.org, and we will get that information to Rita so she can help with the answers to any of your questions that may come up throughout the day. So thank you, Rita. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone, with all of your sponsorships. I know it's tough. Thank you for all you do for HFMA.